Okay, nice to meet you again. So I'm so sorry that we have to add the session because before I thought that we are only 4 times with me, and so I thought that we are done last week. But then I was informed by Ibu Miss Rita that I need to add some more. So that's why we need to have this session. So thank you so much for being able to come this morning. What I have in mind, Yogi, is Yogi here already? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So what I have in mind is that today we will have 2 sessions at once. So might not be that long, but I will give you what is it, time to do something or maybe to study by yourself. And 2 more will be assignment. Right? Is it okay for you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Then you will submit the assignment in week 4. So today is week 1, right? Today is week 1. Sorry, week 5 from the beginning. So we will have a kind of a bit long session this morning, which means that this morning is used for 2 sessions. And after that, we will have week 7 and week 8. Right, week 7 and week 8 will be replaced by assignment that I will ask you to read something and after that to make something. Is it okay for you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
yes, thank you so much. And after that, I will give you a link for Google Drive where you can submit your assignment. So you can submit your assignment there. Right? So it will be a kind of making a preparation of teaching and give me a kind of information, which basically telling us about what are you going to teach, what level that you are going to teach, and what step that you have to take or carry out in order to be able to teach the best you can. So that will be individual work, which replace the session 7 and 8, right? And that will be more for independent learning. I give you my book already about strategi pembelajaran bahasa. And you are also able to explore more information about the method of teaching, current issues on the method of teaching. And from there, I hope that you are able to make a piece of assignment to show that you are able to teach your student in an innovative way. So that will be the last assignment that you have. One assignment for week 7 and week 8. So I will be write it down as well. And then I will share that information to Yogi. So then Yogi can send information to you all. Right. So basically for the online Zoom will be today, which is a bit long. And then the rest will be your independent learning. Okay. So is it okay for you? All of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, thank you. Now there are how many students now? 11 students. But some might be joining later when ask permission from me. So it doesn't matter. I will share information about current issues in the method of teaching of English nowadays. So what is that is yeah. So this will be the sessions that we are going to have today. That is technique of teaching English for special needs students in inclusive school and ideas for further research. This one is very important. Why? Because there is not so many books about this yet. And this is considered to be a kind of current issues because there are not so many schools who are conducting this program at the moment, even though the government try to inform about the policy how students of special need can be included in regular schools. Because the information about this one for Indonesian context is not that much. So I choose this topic to be shared this morning. So then you will have a kind of understanding about the current issues related to how or what kind of technique of teaching English for special needs students that you can do in inclusive school. Okay, now before we start, can we ask a kind of review before we, what is it? I would like to review before we are going to share this topic. Anybody can tell me about inclusive school, please? What is meant by inclusive school?
Ma'am,
Yes.
in my experience, inclusive school is a school that is have what is that agreement with government. In this case, is Dinas Pendidikan. We have some kind of surat keputusan SK pointed by Dinas Pendidikan that this school, the teacher in this school is trained to teach the student with special needs. But special needs in this case is have some kind of level. For example, tunadaksa, ma'am, lamban belajar, or the student with they, for example, not, I'm sorry to say, blind or deaf, no, but student what is that? Kebutuhannya itu masih agak standar lah, masih bisa untuk di sekolah yang normal school gitu. Jadi inclusive school is a school that pointed by the government to be able, the teacher is trained to teach the special student, for example tunadaksa, lamban belajar, or student with special needs. For example, misalnya seperti di sekolah saya dulu, saya mengajar di SD, itu ada siswa matanya terganggu sebelah, tapi sebelahnya oke, dan yang lain tubuhnya oke, jadi tapi masuk ke dalam student with special needs, ma'am.
Good point. Any other student would like to add that information? Okay. Now, no more information about it. Now I would like to share that information to you. Why I choose this topic? Because teaching students with special need in inclusive school is not that easy. You need to have a kind of strategy. You need to have a kind of programs. So later, if, for example, you want to handle them in a classroom that is included with other mainstream student or regular student, you are not that confused, you are ready, and you understand who your students are. So that's why now I would like to share the information to you. Like I told you, the topic about this one for Indonesian context is not that many yet. You want to know about how the technique of teaching English for a student of autistic to be included in a regular classroom in primary school, you can search my article. I published an article in a journal indexed by Scopus in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And if you search my name, Padma Dewi /autism, and then you can find out the article. If, for example, you want to read about it, you will have an idea how I can do that, how we do that, and what type of technique of teaching English, which was done, and what type of media as a supporting equipment that was done in order to help the student with special need. So need special information about what kind of technique of teaching English for this one. Right, how many of you have the experience about this one, this topic? Not yet?
Yes, ma'am.
So, so easy for me then to start from the right, from the beginning. Right. Okay. Why we need to discuss about this one? Because number of students with special need inclusive primary school in Indonesia quite a lot. Look at this. And even based on the information that I got, the number of students who are with special need, autistic only, based on the information that I got, increase at least 500 per year in Indonesia. You can imagine that the number of students is also need to be, considered, and on how you are going to teach your student in your classroom. Look at this. This is the data by 2021. This is the type of student of special need that can be recorded at the moment. But the fact that there are many more students who might not be recorded because the school do not really have a kind of formal report about it. So in reality, I can consider the number of students of special need who are included in a regular primary school will be more than what can be recorded by a formal, record like this one, because some school does just have a kind of program for that, and they don't really report to the government about the number of special needs students that are available in the school. So what is meant by special needs? Okay, what is meant by student with special need? So this is a kind of student who requires special education. What is meant by special education? They are not developing in the level of the age that they have. Say, for example, the student is 7 years old. This student do not behaving like the student of 7 years old. The behavior, the cognition, the cognitive ability is below the age level. So that's why if, for example, you have that student, then in your classroom, you cannot treat that student equally or similarly with those who are really regular, those who are really in a regular situation. For that reason, you need to care, you need to give special treatment, you need to have special program or special strategy how that student can be best helped. So then this student also have the right to have the best quality education. So for that reason, as an English teacher, for example, you need also to prepare yourself how you are able to adapt your teaching material, your technical teaching, in order that student can follow your teaching learning process without any stress, without any kind of burden, and other students also are not disturbed by the existence of that special needs student in their classroom. So what are the type of special needs students that can be included in your classroom, right? These are the list. And the student of special need are the students who may have learning disabilities or intellectual disabilities, physical disabilities, or emotional disabilities, right? So this is the type of student that can be included in an inclusive school. I remember my school have a student with sight disabilities, right? He cannot see properly, even though maybe a small amount, I don't know, but sometimes we find out that the student just couldn't find any certain place, meaning that he couldn't, see properly. So because of that condition, we then provide special program for him. And we also prepare the student, the regular student, in order to accept that student, in order not to bully him, right? So we have to be able to create certain kind of program in order that student can be well accepted by other students. So these are the type of the student. It can be student of hearing impairment. We have this several times. Student of hearing impairment, student of visual impairment, like I told you, we also have this one before. Student of Down syndrome, student of autism, student who have attention deficit hyperactive disorder, we usually call it ADHD, student of intellectual impairment, student of learning disabilities, student of slow learner, and other type of special needs students, say, for example, dyslexia, for example, student who have problem in reading. Okay. So what are, in order to be able to give the best treatment, because the government has a kind of regulation, like we all know, that every student must have the right to have the best quality education. For that reason, what are the possible system education for students with disabilities or special need can be done in Indonesia? So there are 4 types of system of education for students with special need: integration, exclusion, segregation, inclusive education. Right. What is happening at the moment in Indonesia is segregation. Do you understand what is meant by segregation system? Students with special need are excluded from regular school. So that's why we have what is meant by SLB, sekolah luar biasa, segregation. Right? Sekolah SLB. There are also parents who choose to have exclusion by providing homeschooling. Some parents have this kind of opinion. Well, it is not easy for my kids to be accepted in a regular school, but then the parents are not also ready to have the kids to be included in SLB. So what they can do is that they choose to have homeschooling. For modern parents, they buy a program, homeschooling. There are many programs of homeschooling. It's totally up to the parents. So they are teaching their kids at home, following the program, the curriculum that they have. That can be homeschooling. The next one is integration. What is meant by integration is that the students are included in a regular school, but the regular school do not do anything, that the student must be able to adapt themselves, integrated in the schools. And the one that is recommended by the government, based on a regulation that can be used as a basis of how the student can be included in a regular school, is called inclusive education, right? So what is meant by inclusive education? Inclusive education allow, like it was informed by your friends before, inclusive education is the school which allows students of all backgrounds to learn and grow side by side to the benefit of all, right? What does it mean? Inclusive education means all children in the same classrooms, in the same school. It means real teaching opportunity for groups who have traditionally been excluded, like those of autistic, like those of slow learner, like those of special needs students, not only children with disabilities, but also speakers of minority language too. So they are included now in the school or a regular school. inclusive education is the most effective way to give all children a fair chance to go to school, learn and develop the skill they need to thrive. Why? Because everybody has a right to a meaningful place in education. Okay, what a model of inclusive education in Indonesia? First of all, we say as partial inclusion, and the next one is full inclusion. Anybody can tell me what is meant by those one, as you know, describe in your own word, might be better, please. Ibu Rista, what is meant by partial, what is meant by full inclusion? You can have it on screen, but you might have any kind of what is it, experience about this one. Can you say something? Yes, Ibu Rista?
Wait, ma'am.
Yes, please. Any other students might be have the experience about handling or teaching student in inclusive education? Okay, now let's discuss about this one, partial inclusion. What is meant by partial inclusion is that students with special needs are included in regular education classroom, but are pulled out for required services, right? For example, if you are a teacher and you teach English in your school, if, for example, the students are in the school following partial inclusion, so you can include that student in your classroom if the topic is okay for him. But if the topic is too difficult for him, you can just ask the student to be pulled out of the classroom and teach in a special room, for example, and provided the student with easier topics which is on their level. So that is called partial inclusion. So the students are not included all the time in your classroom, right? Why? Because we have to think about the benefit of including the student in the classroom. If the topic that you teach is not that easy for them, so what's the point of including them, right? It will disturb the regular students, and the student with special need will be stressed because of the topic is too difficult, he cannot handle the situation. So that's why partial inclusion can be done. The next one is full inclusion, meaning that students with special need are included in regular education classroom, and support and aids are given to the regular education teacher to assist the special education student in the classroom. Okay, usually this one depends on the level of disability of the student. If the students are only slow learners, then the teacher might not need any assistance in teaching them. But it will be important to have an assistant if the student is being autistic, for example, severe autistic. It's too difficult to be handled by the main teacher only because it might influence the effectiveness of teaching the regular student in that classroom. So the situation is a bit flexible. Very much you have to adapt the technique based on what are needed by the student and the school. If, for example, you don't have any support system, then you have to do the best way how you can help that student. So if, example, it is not possible to have the student to be included all the time in a regular classroom, so you can ask them to pull out of the classroom and ask your assistant or other teacher to help you to teach them in a special room. So you can make it more flexible, right? Because what we think about is what is the best for the students, not the best for the school, right? Only. So you consider what are the benefit for the student of special need. Now, what people do usually is, sometimes they, in a school, as a school, they make it partial inclusive school. What is meant by that? Sometimes the students are involved, integrated, or included. Might be better to have the word included in a, what is it, in a regular classroom. Say, for example, the student with special need are included in regular classroom in certain subject only: arts, PE, music, games, or project. The student with special need are usually directed by a shadow teacher if needed. So the teacher that is assigned to be in that classroom is called a shadow teacher. Why do you think a shadow teacher? Why it is called as a shadow teacher? Kenapa kira-kira disebut shadow teacher? Do you know about it? That is because the teacher is following the student wherever they go as a shadow, right? So that's why it is called as a shadow teacher. Like this one, look at this, school art, PE, music, games, and project. This is usually happening because those subjects do not need to have special abilities to join. So usually with this one, the teacher can just do it, right? Why? Because the student need to know or need to have the experience of socializing with others, right? Mingle with others. So those experiences are so important. But if, example, you have to teach your subject and you find that the student find it difficult to understand your subject, so then you can ask them to pull out, right? What is meant by this? Students are pulled out and treated with IEP. Do you understand what is meant by IEP? Individual education plan based on their levels and their needs. Students are taken out and taught in their special room. Now, what are the philosophy of teaching student with special needs student? This is a very important one to be understood because these three approaches are not only effective for teaching in inclusive classroom, but also in teaching English in general. Anybody can tell me or have the experience of having these approaches? Somebody please let me know. Have you had any experiences of carrying out differentiated instruction? Anybody? Mr. Alfian?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, what is meant?
Differentiated instruction means that we as a teacher adjust the method to teach our students based on what purpose, what they need, and what they want, ma'am.
Very good. Do you have any experience in teaching a student with differentiated instruction?
No, ma'am, I have no experience.
This is actually now is introduced to any sekolah penggerak. Do you know sekolah penggerak? The new, what is it, policy of the government? Guru penggerak, they learn about this one now because they have to apply this one. Anybody here has experience to be guru penggerak? Ada yang jadi guru penggerak di sini sebelumnya? Ada yang punya pengalaman jadi guru penggerak? Not yet? Belum? Ya, Bu Rika?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, do you have any experience of being guru penggerak or applying, or maybe if not as guru penggerak, maybe applying this one, differentiated instruction?
I have ever used that when I was teaching at course, but they actually just slow learners, not for some students who has special needs to sit
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
And then I just teach them based on their level because I think that he is too old at the time to learn language. But I think that that's okay. But he 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 doesn't have basic in English, so it's hard to teach students who has an old age at the time, and I need to make special instruction for the other students. They create their own sentences, but for him I just make like what is that, to complete a sentence. It's not create a sentence but complete the sentence, and then
Mhm.
he read it. It's it helps her, I mean, sorry, it helps him to, what is that, to increase his vocabulary, but it doesn't help his speaking because he cannot make a sentence, I mean build a sentence for speaking, so just know about several words. That's it, ma'am. This is my experience.
Okay. Now, what I want to tell you is that differentiated instruction, what you mentioned is exactly right. So what we need to understand about differentiated instruction is that the learning approach which is tailored, which is adapted by taking into account individual differences and the need of the student in the same class, like for example, the material, the activities must be adapted based on the level of the student. Can I just have a minute? Somebody's coming here. Just a minute. You can discuss about this one first. What is meant by this one? How it is affordable in your classroom, and the second approach and the third approach. Okay, so what is meant by differentiated instruction? So you, for example, have students of different background, like it was before. We have a student with special need. Say, for example, we have a student of slow learner. We have a student of autistic. So we have student of, for example, very advanced, very smart. But we also have students who are left behind, for example, slow learner, and those are in your classroom. Yeah, those are in your classroom. So what is the philosophy differentiated instruction is that your learning process must be modified. Your material, your teaching learning process must be modified in order those students are having the best material in their level. So imagine the challenge. Now I would like you to discuss or to think about what might be the challenges that you as teachers might need to think about, that you might face in your classroom if you have, for example, students who are very clever, the students who are left behind, and other students in your classroom, and you are demanded to do differentiated instruction. Can you please think about 5 minutes and discuss what might be the challenges that you might have in teaching English, right? Yes, what do you think is the challenge that you might have if you have to do differentiated instruction? Ibu Tiara? What do you think the challenge that you might have?
I think that the
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So the challenge for the teacher to teach English or teach language for the student that needs special treatment is about it will be require of time, or we need to really analyze the characteristic of the students.
Yeah, that might be one challenge. Now, not only student of special need, but the using differentiated instruction, meaning that your teaching learning process must be modified based on the characteristic of the student. So can you imagine the situation, for example, you are a single teacher in your classroom, you have two students, for example, who are really very clever, much more clever than the regular classroom. And there are three students who are slow learners. And then there is also a student of autistic, and the rest are average student. So what might be the challenge that you have in that classroom?
So because there are different level or learning style, so the challenge of the teacher, I think that we have to be really mobile to move fast for the student with clever students. Then we have to give more attention to for the slow behind.
Yeah. So you need to be mobile, right? Good. What is the other challenge that you might have? So in other words, I think you are, in other words, is that you are using very professional and effective classroom management. Can you imagine? It's not only being mobile, right? But what do you think the other thing that is also the challenge, the difficulties that you might have beside that being mobile? Other student, please.
Me, ma'am.
Yes, please.
One of the challenge that must be faced by the student is the teacher to do the differentiated instruction is the teacher must be able to design the proper lesson plan, including the instruction material for every level. Imagine if the student is, for example, only 3 level, so the teacher must prepare 3 different lesson plan for every level. And then for the student with slow learner or what is that, a genius one, for example, the teacher have to prepare the remedial and enrichment material too for the student. That is my opinion. Thank you.
Yes, very good indeed. That is perfect. What about the other one?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, please.
Yeah, in my opinion, the challenge also about the media provided to help us in providing the activity that may attract them better and fit their needs, ma'am. So sometimes we have all the idea in our mind, but in the reality in the classroom, we are lack of media or another support to provide the learning that really fit their needs.
Yes, very good indeed. That is actually the fact that we usually face in the classroom. Right, the next one.
Yeah,
Me,
I think,
ma'am.
ma'am,
Yes, please.
It's about time management, ma'am. Sorry. So
Yeah.
it's hard to apply differentiate instructions because we need to, as Miss Rijas said before, we need to make a lesson plan, or Ma'am Novelli said that media, and we need to manage our time for that. It beats a long sorry, ma'am. It's a bit long for, what is that, preparing that kind of teaching and learning process, the classroom. It's about time, I think.
Yes, very good. The next one.
yeah, ma'am. I think the reality in the class, ma'am, teachers should re-explain the material based on the characteristic of students. So it means and it takes time to re-explain to the state to the student with the different of level of the student, ma'am. I think so. It takes time to re-explain, or we tell them to what is it? To make them understand of the lesson of maybe English lesson. I think that's so. It takes time to make them understand of the lesson of what we want to make them to what is it to understand the material. So it takes time, ma'am. That's my
it's
point.
true. It takes time. Now, my question: you are explaining before, you are informing before that would re-explain. Now, can you tell me whether explaining to those type of student are equally the same for all students in a classroom, or what? Anybody can tell me? Because we are talking about differentiated instruction at the moment. Right? So do you think that you are going the way you explained to your student in that classroom is equally the same?
No.
Of
Yes.
course, no.
No, yeah, of course
Yes,
not.
of course not. That is the point of differentiated instruction. So can you tell me what technique or what strategies that you need to use if, for example, you have to apply differentiated instruction in your classroom? How will you explain something to your student? Anybody can tell me?
Okay, ma'am. Ika.
Yes.
Okay. We have I don't know how to say this, a level up students, and then we need to create our own strategy for 3 of them. First for the fast learner, slow learner, and average. So for the fast learner, we believe that they can handle their own learning process. We believe them they can do individually. So we make what is that? To look for what is that? To look
And
for the instruction outside the classroom, and then for the average, we just make, but it's not hard, but it's not too easy to for them, and then we still guide them, but it's not like we guide them like a slow learner. And for slow learner, we need to guide them not a whole time, but in the first until the end of the class, we need to guide them very well, ma'am. That's it. Sorry.
yeah, that is a good point. So you can say, for example, the point of differentiated instruction is that you are needed to differentiate the way you teach your student. You have to be able to make the way you teach your student differently based on the characteristic of your student. So what was given by your friends before are really a good point. Say, for example, those who are really fast learner or advanced learner, you can just ask them to work individually. You just need to give example first, and after that you can ask them to do by themselves. And the next one, for those who are really average student, you can provide the material where they can do a kind of group work, for example. Those who are really left behind will be studying with you, right, with the teachers. So that is what is meant by differentiated instruction. One example of differentiated instruction. What kind of classroom management can be used for that one, for example? Those who are really fast learner can be sitting down in the corner, for example, working by herself or himself individually. If you have 3 students, for example, you can have 3 students over there studying by themselves. For those who are really average, you can make them into group if the number of students in your classroom is not that many. So you can have those who are really average in one big group, or if it's not that good, you can make it into 2 groups. They are working in group. Those who are really slow learner can be working with you on the floor, studying with you, right? So you can have your student sitting down with you on the floor, and then you can ask them to do something with your help. So that is one example of differentiated instruction. Usually, in order to be able to do this one, the teachers need really having a lot of experience. This is not, I find out based on my experience, new teachers find it really very hard. Really very hard. It's not that easy. For that reason, school usually ask the teacher, after they are having a lot of services of teaching, a long hours of teaching, right? Say, for example, you have the experience of teaching in the school, for example, 5 years already. So what does it mean? The teachers already know the characteristic of the student really well, have a very good, what is it, technique of teaching them. So then by having those experiences, the teacher are able to do differentiated instruction. So that is the need that is very important to be considered in teaching in a classroom that is having a kind of different background. So that is the first one. The second one is the whole person approach. I would like somebody to give me explanation what is meant by the whole person approach. With example, maybe Krisha, can you give example or maybe explain about that one?
Okay. I think actually I have no experience about it, ma'am.
From the, yeah, okay, you can guess what is meant by the whole person approach. You can guess what is meant by that?
I think the whole person approach is it's more like I think pendekatan secara emosional mungkin kepada siswa atau peserta didik yang ada di kelas. Jadi dengan melakukan pendekatan secara emosional itu, jadi gurunya jadi lebih tahu apa yang diinginkan siswa, lebih tahu bagaimana perasaan siswa ketika mengikuti pembelajaran tersebut, sehingga bisa menentukan step by step yang lebih cocok tapi diterapkan di learning class-nya. Kira-kira begitu yang bisa saya pahami.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. Now, can you see what is meant by the whole person? The whole person approach. The whole person? You can have a look on this one so you can guess. Yeah, you can guess. Anybody can guess what is meant by this? You have the experience already, the information over there on screen. Anybody, please let me know.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, please.
In my opinion, guessing from what we have on the screen, the whole person approach is related to how we consider the physical, behavioral, emotional, and social, how that person interact in their society like that, ma'am. I mean, we need to pay attention to not only one aspect of somebody as a person, but this is include all of the aspect like physical, behavioral, emotional.
Yeah.
That's
Okay, good. So the whole person approach is that the approach which deal with all aspect of the person, all domains, which take full account of the emotional, physical, spiritual dimension of the person. What does it mean? If you are teaching, you have to teach the student as a whole, because you cannot just emphasize the cognitive domain. You also need to consider the psychological domain or the behavioral domain of the student. Because usually we find out that the students, the teachers sometimes only teach the student by emphasizing the cognitive domain only. They ignore the emotional, spiritual, or even the behavioral dimensions of the student. So if you are teaching English, you have to think about it. Say, for example, if you teach your student, and your student is, for example, having your class, English class, after they are having a very long PE, physical exercise, for example. They have a kind of a support class before. So in terms of their physical condition, they are all very tired, right? And then you have to teach English afterward. So can you imagine that the student who have been very tired before, and now you have to teach them English. So you have to think about it. Physically they are tired, or might be emotionally they are tired. So you have to think about what will be the best strategy that you have to be able to use. So then the students are still able to learn in the best way possible, but also it's not making them even worse. So in that case, for example, you might need to just think about how you can teach your students using games, for example. So then they are not that tired, right? Because they already been tired before with the other subject. So by considering the emotional condition of the student, you are able to make your classroom become effective. So what is meant by the whole person approach is that in teaching English, you have to think about how the other dimension of the student as a whole need to be considered, right? Or in other words, we cannot just emphasize the cognitive domain only in teaching. So that is what is meant by the whole person approach. So that's why if you think that in teaching English, the teachers are recommended how to be able to use ice-breaking activities, for example, or they have to be able to use, for example, how they are able to use game, for example, or they are able to do certain other activities. Why? Because the purpose of teaching is not only teaching cognitive aspect only, but also how the other part also develop well. So that is called the whole person approach. The next one is constructivism. Anybody can tell me what is meant by constructivism? Anybody can explain what is that? Ibu Ikrimah, please. Try to give any explanation what you know about that one.
Okay, I'm trying because just correct me if I'm wrong because I have never taught students with special needs before.
This is not only special need actually, but this is the philosophy of teaching which is also applicable for special need. Yeah, differentiated instruction, the whole person approach is not for special need only, right? This is for any student, right? Yes, please.
Okay, but I'm trying to explain that. I think project-based learning, it means that the teacher ask the students to make a project, for example, to the first year, of course, we teach about self-introductions, and then I usually ask the students to make the video to introduce herself or himself, and then they submit it to me into MP4 or something like that. And I think it is also applicable for, just example, the students with special needs, they have tunarungu or for something like that. And because I have a brother and he is tunarungu, but he has a school at SLB before, and since then I can speak language signs a little bit, although for just basics. And then I think it can be done. It can be done for someone like that, and he or she can introduce herself or himself by using language sign, and then he or she will make a subtitle behind on the screen. What is that? Below the screen, yeah. And then with English subtitle, and then as a viewer, we can see, oh, if the sign like this means it is in English like that, ma'am. I think that's it. Thank you.
That example, the activity that you can do. Okay, thank you. So what is meant by constructivism, an approach in a teaching? Anybody, what is meant by this philosophy that you have to use constructivism in the process of teaching? One example of the model of learning which apply constructivism is project-based learning. This is only one example. Anybody can tell me what is meant by constructivism? You can guess from the word. You can guess what is the meaning of that word.
Ma'am, can I
Yes.
add?
Yes, please.
As I remember from what I have learned before, constructivism is one of the educational philosophy, and the idea of constructivism is based on the thinking of the people can construct their own knowledge based on their experience or behavior. Man, I think like that.
Yes.
Based on the experience or experiment thing.
Yes, very good. What is the name of the expert, the pioneer of this one? Piaget, right? So what is from the word, the philosophy, you can read more about Piaget explanation, ideas about constructivism. So in here is that the student must be, this approach is an approach which give the opportunity for the student to construct their own knowledge by or from the experience that they have. So the student are provided with experiences, right? From those experiences, the students are able to construct their own knowledge. Do you have any ideas? What is the example of the implementation of constructivism in the process of daily teaching in English? Anybody can tell me? Anybody can tell me the example of constructivism in your daily process of teaching and learning in your English class? Nobody? Right, let me give you example. Okay, so you can ask your student to make a project, for example, a project of making what is it? A project of making a birthday invitation, for birthday parties, for example. So you make a simple project. So say, for example, you group your student to number one. You ask your student question. Do you ever have any kind of birthday celebration? So the second one, how do you invite your friends to come to your birthday celebration? What kind of birthday cards that you can give to your friends? So that are the questions that you can ask, and the student must be able to answer your question. So the first day, for example, this is a project of 1 week, for example. The first day, you ask your students to explore any example of birthday celebration, right? The second one, for example, they have to find out from many online sources, for example, how people are creating birthday invitation card. And after that, the first one, for example, and the second one, for example, you ask your students to observe, right? To observe, to identify parts of the birthday cards, right? So the first one, they collected many types of birthday cards. So some are having example of birthday. They can screenshot or they can take pictures, and they combine, they collected many types of birthday cards. The second one, you ask them to identify, to observe. They say, for example, they are able to collect 10 cards, right? From the 10 cards, you ask them to to analyze the content of the invitation. What are the content of invitation? The last one, for example, you have to make the student to make conclusion. What are the type of the birthday cards that they identify? The second one, what are the contents of the birthday card that they identify? All right. So those are the example of how the students are able to construct their own knowledge. At the end, you can make a kind of discussion with them. Look, based on the example that we have, we are able to identify there are two types of birthday cards. The first one is formal birthday card. The second one is informal birthday cards. The content of the birthday card must be 1, 2, 3, 4, for example. So it's not the teacher who are lecturing about that one. It's not the teacher who are explaining about that one, but the student identify, construct their own knowledge. You just provide them with question, like I told you before. So that is one example of constructivism. Is it clear for you? Ada yang belum jelas? Is it clear? Yes or no?
Clear, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. So I would like you to discuss about this one and then later explain about this one. Yeah. So what do you think that must be considered before teaching? Number one, why you need to know about this? Number one, anybody can tell me? Knowledge and understanding about the student. Why you need to know about this one? What is the importance of knowing the student? Why you need to consider or why you need to know about the characteristic of student before you teach?
Ma'am,
Yes, please.
in my opinion, it is the first very basic stage for the teacher to put the student on their level. So the student must have a knowledge and understanding about their student. So you put the student in the right level.
Yeah, are you saying that the teacher must know who are the student that they teach, whether they are clever student or whether they are some are naughty student might be, or some of the teacher or some of the student might be left behind.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, very good. Why? Because those information will guide you how you are going to teach. Let me give you example. This is my experience when I was the first time teaching senior high school student long time ago when I had to teach in a private school and I had to teach English to students in a private school. This group is considered to be very special class. Why considered to be special? Because they are naughty there. That class is a naughty student and mohon maaf, slow learners. Zaman dulu itu ada kelas IPS. Dikatakan kelas itu kelas nakal dan kelas paling bodoh. I have to teach there, right? Do you know the challenge that I have? Do you know what the challenge that I have? Let me allow me to share my stories about this one. The first time I was entering the room, it was in 1987, long time ago, but I remembered really very well up to now. When I was entering the room, you know what? All the students are standing and singing a song. Singing a song is not really in that good way, but really just very naughty. You can imagine the situation. I was just graduating my S1 degree at that time. Very young, not have experiences, but there you are, you have to teach the students who are in the same size with you. Even though I might be older in terms of age, but they are in the same size with me, right? So I was so, a bit, what is it, disappointed and angry at the same time, but I'm prepared, you know. So the first time, to my surprise, when I entered the classroom, the students just all really just singing a song and sitting down politely, you know, staring at you. Some are talking with other friends, they ignore me, right? And I was a bit surprised. What should I do? What should I do in my mind, right? Do you know what I did at that time? Can you tell me what do you think the possible ways that I have to do? Can you guess? I'm not, maybe for you, I don't like it. You go out of the room and then you don't teach. Might be other people like that, but me now, what I have to do is that I go to the podium. The podium is, you know, a bit, what is on the side, because I'm that small. I mean, it's not that tall. So I'm going to the podium, so then I can be a bit taller, so I can see everybody. Go to that one. And then because of I'm so angry, because the first time for me to see that those naughty students. So what I did is that I stand up in the podium, and after that, because I was so angry, so I don't want the student know how angry I am. So then I express my angriness, my anger, by explaining, by just, you know, out of control, but all in English. So I was, you know, expressing my anger in English. I was standing up in the podium. I was very firm. My face is very firm. And then I talk in English all the time. You know what happened? Suddenly all silent. Suddenly all person look at me. And then they talk in bahasa Bali. Wayah nih. What does it mean? Hebat nih. Gurunya pakai bahasa Inggris full gitu. So because I'm using English all the time, because I'm so angry at that time, so then my English really very, what is it, speeding and then talking without thinking, and that make the student amazed. And then because of that, the student all is silent and look at me, and then they know now, oh, this teacher is not really what is it, common teacher. This teacher is special teacher. When I get their attention, then I can teach my student. So how I know about that one? So I call the student who are the naughtiest student. I call the name, and then I ask him to do something. Again, to his surprise, why this new teacher know about my name? Okay, so I use that kind of strategy in order to start my teaching, because if you have the first impression, then the teacher will be able to handle the student. So before I go to school, go to the classroom, I came to the homeroom teacher. Do you know homeroom teacher? Saya pergi ke wali kelasnya. Saya tanya siapa anak yang paling nakal, siapa anak paling pinter, siapa anak yang ekstrem-ekstrem itu saya tanya. Sebagai bekal saya ngajar. Ketika ngajar tinggal kita panggil nama-nama tersebut sehingga dia merasa, oh ternyata record tentang kelas itu sudah dipegang oleh ibu-ibu nih gitu. That's the way. And also in order to, the next reason for number two is that, for number one is that you will be able to prepare the material which is on the level. That was mentioned by your friend before, right? So you can also use to have effective classroom management. In order to know, in order to be able to manage your class, you have to know who they are. Apakah ada anak yang nakal di situ? Apakah ada anak yang rendah kemampuannya atau anak bagaimana? So you need to know about that one. The second one, the support system available. Can you tell me why we need to know about this one before you teach?
Yes, ma'am. Maybe it's when school or teacher provide the material or modify the material with LCD or internet to improve student skills of English lesson. Maybe that's my opinion, ma'am.
Yes, very good. The third one, school and parents involvement. Can you please? You need to consider about this one. Yeah, this is really important if you teach special needs student. Can you tell me for number three? Number three, please. Okay, this one is very important to be known because handling students in the classroom, you need to involve parents, right? So you might need to call parents to come to school if you find something unusual happening, right? So you need to involve parents in your classroom if you need to share the information about the student progress or the student problem. So that's why you need to consider about this one. If, for example, you have any event, any things happening in your classroom, you need to call the parents what happening the day before, or maybe what happening before coming to school, why the student behaving in that way. So imagine if, for example, you don't have any parent involvement program, you might not be able to find out what was going on with the student before they are coming to school. So if, for example, you have parents involvement program, so you can just ask permission from the schoolmaster or the school principal to talk to parents to be able to identify what was happening to the student before going to school, because you find out the student are having, you know, special characteristic or maybe have a kind of problem in your classroom. So you need to identify, to analyze what is going on with the student in their home or in their house before they are coming. So it's very important to have to know about this one. Number four, scaffolding which might be needed by the student. Do you know what is meant by scaffolding? Any student can tell me, please?
Excuse me, ma'am. Maybe
Yes,
it's a method that teacher over for particular support.
Yeah, particular support is the last, is a good word. Okay, thank you. As assistant, bantuan, guidance, itu disebut dengan scaffolding. Do you know what is meant by scaffolding? If you are building a house, for example, you have a scaffolding needed. Jadi semacam rancangan bangun begitu, sehingga nanti kalau sudah selesai dihilangkan. Jadi scaffolding itu adalah a kind of guidance that is provided to your student, but then slowly that guidance will be minimized until the students are able to help themselves, right? So that is scaffolding. Yeah. So it's not there all the time, but scaffolding will be minimized bit by bit until the students are ready to be independent or to know themselves by themselves. Yeah. So size of the class. Can you tell me why you need to know about size of the class before teaching? Yes, Agel?
Yes, ma'am. I think maybe the size of the class is important because the class with the size is good enough. This make the teaching learning process is comfortable, ma'am.
Is it about to make the teaching learning class comfortable? What else do you think? The important to know about the size of the class?
We need to know about size of the class to consider about the method, the material that we teach for them. Is the big class or only the small class that we teach? So we need to consider about size of class. That's my opinion, ma'am.
Yeah, good. So the size of the class is important to be known before in order, number one, you are able to consider what kind of classroom management that you are going to have. Are you going to give them game, for example? If you need to give them a game, what kind of game that you can give? So you need to consider the number of the students in the classroom. Okay, I would like to teach speaking using games. What are the number of students in the classroom? Or the number of students in the classroom is about 60. Okay, so if 60 students, for example, what kind of game that I have to use in order I can still teach students speaking, all can be involved, all can be having the chance to talk, but then the classroom is okay, it's nice, it's not noisy. How can I do that? So you need to know about that one so then you are able to prepare yourself better. Teaching aids, this is so important as well because you need to know whether you need any kind of video or you need to have a kind of picture or you need to have a kind of other kind of aids, teaching aids that is important in your classroom. So you think about it. Restriction of time. Say, for example, you have to teach your student in one class only consists of 50 minutes, for example. What kind of activities that you have to provide so that in 50 minutes you can able to handle your classroom. So your class will not be lack of time or might be not too much time needed. Say, for example, if you are not a professional teacher, you might not be able to, maybe before you finish your classroom, your material has been really all finished. Oke, materinya dalam 15 menit aja udah habis dan mahasiswa nggak tahu dan guru nggak tahu apa yang harus dikerjakan berikutnya. Oh, bahkan belum selesai setengah materinya, waktunya sudah habis. So you have to think about the time and think about it. What you are going to teach before you are teaching itself. So you have to be able to think about the time. How much time that is available for you. Okay, the next one, arrangement of light. This is important if you teach special needs student because autistic student, for example, cannot stand a strong light. Usually they are not able to, to feel convenient if, for example, the light is too strong. So you think about this as well. The next one is that attention to physical need. You also to think about whether the bathroom is safe, for example, whether the bathroom is close to your classroom or not, or whether the bathroom is really downstairs only, so your student need to be going downstairs. If, for example, you have a student who cannot see, who have visual impairment, for example. So they need to go up and down the stairs. Are they able to help themselves, for example? So things like that. Do you think that you will be disturbed by that condition? If, for example, you have to teach your student in that situation? Okay, so, okay, for example, do you see the type of chair that you have? Do you think that the chair is good enough to be used in your classroom? Can the student move the chairs? Or is it movable? So things like that. Karena saya pernah mengajar di sebuah kelas, sebelum saya mengajar, saya tanya, Pak, apa memungkinkan enggak saya memindah-mindah meja di kelas karena saya mau mempraktekkan game di situ? Nggak bisa, Bu. Soalnya mejanya itu adalah meja kayu yang tua-tua banget yang dipindahkan oleh seorang anak pun nggak bisa. So imagine if, for example, you have to make games and then you prepare yourself with a game, for example, because without, if, for example, you don't prepare before you teach, jadi bayangkan seumpama kalian tidak siap, artinya tidak menanyakan kepada pihak sekolah sebelumnya, jenis mejanya apa, jenis kursinya apa, tiba-tiba kalian harus menyiapkan game misalnya. Anak-anak nggak bisa pindah, nggak bisa keluar leluasa dengan baik, bangkunya nggak bisa digeser karena terlalu berat. That's influence your classroom management. So that's important to know about physical need. And also type of the school system the children attend. Is it fully inclusive or partially inclusive? Or bahkan tidak tahu sama sekali. So these are the one that you need to consider before you teach. So you cannot just come and teach. Okay, so after you know about that one, you think about what are you going to do to plan before teaching. This is special for teaching students with special need. If you have to teach English to students of special need, this is the activity that you have to prepare before teaching. The first one, shadow teacher. Now, if, for example, you are the shadow teacher or you are the main teacher, and the other person is your shadow teacher. Mengerti namanya shadow teacher? The teacher who are always accompanying, or the student who are always follow with the student special need in the classroom. So that is shadow teacher. Atau di bahasa Indonesia sering disebut dengan guru pendamping anak itu. Must be able to make coordinations with the classroom teacher. The next one, identifying the problem difficulties faced by the student. You need to think about it. What are the problems that they usually have? And after that, prepare. What do they prepare? Ya, what do they need to prepare? Apa yang akan diajar? Menentukan topiknya dulu. Membuat list of aktivitasnya. Habis itu setelah tahu itu baru kemudian menuangkan dalam bentuk lesson plan. Yang dibuat itu adalah IEP. Apa itu IEP? Individual Education Plan, meaning that lesson plan khusus untuk masing-masing anak. Jadi kalian nggak boleh kalau misalnya ada anak special need di kelasnya, itu karena anaknya tidak bisa mengikuti kelas secara umum yang ada di pelajaran secara umum yang ada di kelas itu, maka kalian harus bisa membuat special lesson plan for that special student. So you always need to have what is called as IEP, which is stand for Individual Education Plan. After that, you make a report, and after that, you make communication book. What is meant by communication book? A book that is used to share information about the student between you, the teacher, and the parents. You need to have this one because sometimes your student having kind of special behavior or maybe tantrum. And in order to know about it, you might write down in the communication book and ask parents to read about it and give comment on the book. So that is usually needed in order to explore the reason behind the student behavior. So that is used to make communication with parents. So it's important you have communication book. This is example of individual education plan. Can you please pay attention for a minute with this one? Ini salah satu contoh saja RPP individual untuk anak special need yang diajar. So usually we have this system. Okay, can you see that one? So you need to have the first one, as usual, the student identity, and then the teacher, the topic, media use, and the time. Look at this. Material thought, and the description. You just need to write down the topic here, and then the more description about the topic you teach. And after that, you need to say, for example, you did this one on, for example, on the second week, you have to write down. The first one is that the thing mastered or understood. You need to write down before you are teaching what have been understood by the student previously. Things not understood yet. Apa yang belum dipahami. Say, for example, you ask about the student daily activities, right? Daily activities. In here, for example, you write down, or the student already know how to say their daily activities. Thing not understood yet, the student are not able to change or to adapt the difference or the changes of the verb, for example. Okay, so you can say that, meaning that the teacher will be able, or later the next day you pay attention on thing which is not understood yet, right? You write down about this one, so you know how the student will be able to help to be assisted in the next teaching. Okay, the next one, student performances. What are the specific behavior happening when you are teaching? If you find out things like that, you just need to take a note. And what was the treatment and what was the result? And after that, what are the messages we can give to parents? So this one needs to be recorded well. So then you are able to have a very good data recorded. If, for example, later the principal want to know about your class or want to know what is going on, or if you want to share information to parents, so you will have this one. And what is more important is that if you want to continue teaching a week after the second week, you have a kind of information what is going on previously. Okay, is that clear until this point? This is example of individual education.
So, ma'am, for the student performance, it is right after we teach them for students performance. Oh,
yes. This one usually, so if you have individual education plan, it is not really fill in all before you teach, right? So you can teach the first one, the first table only, right? After you finish teaching, you can put in, write down the next information in here in the second table and the next table, and after that you can give message to parent here if it is needed. So this one is become a report at the same time also a plan. Very good point. Yeah, is it clear? This is only one example. You have your own example, or you can have just like a template, like using lesson plan, for example. Kalian juga bisa menggunakan template seperti template membuat RPS atau template membuat RPP. Totally up to you, as far as you have the information where you record. Kenapa saya merancang IEP di sekolah saya? Karena saya ingin guru itu tidak habis waktunya untuk membuat RPS atau RPP. Saya ingin guru itu mau membuat planning as a plan, bukan hanya sebagai admin. Jadi saya buat yang sangat simple. Saya membuat admin di RPP yang sangat simple, bahkan sebelum pemerintah mengeluarkan kebijakan tentang RPP 1 halaman. Saya sudah duluan membuat. Kenapa? Because I see the problem. Because sometimes teachers do not like to make RPP because number one is too long. The second one, they don't really use it, sehingga sering ditaruh di sebagai kewajiban admin doang. But what is more needed is that they need to have a good record about it. So I try to make it simple, but it is helping the teachers. So this is what I need that I give to students when they are making individual education plan for the student special need. This is one example. So very easy. It is not be only spending 1 minute to do it. Is it clear?
Ma'am, may I ask?
Hmm?
Okay,
Yes.
on the previous screen, you mentioned about communicative books, that is about make a report and share it to the parents, right? And
Yeah.
then for this IEP, it is also, there is a message for parents. So is daily IEP and communicative books different or just the same? Thank you.
It is different. This one is telling the what is it? The teacher, the parents about what is going on that specific topic with the student. So this is to share information about what is happening with the students when they are taught on this topic. So then if, for example, parents want to make a kind of or help the teacher or the student to study at home, the parent understood what is the topic they learn at school, so then they can continue. That's the point of this one. Communication book is that just a way of, if example you want to give a message out of the other than academic things, you make that information. Say, for example, special, dear parent, can you please go to school on that day because we will have a kind of a special meeting with you. That communication book, right? Okay, for example, dear parent, you need to we need to discuss about the student information, the student ability this week. Please come on this one. Or dear parents, the school will have a teacher student conference. Can you please come on this specific date to school? So that is communication book, which is actually used to share information to parents. But this one is that specific on academic things that need to be informed. Is it clear then the difference? Karena anak-anak itu apalagi special need, mereka tidak bisa menyampaikan informasi. Oke, bisa kalau anak-anak reguler biasa. Oke, nanti kita besok orang tua disuruh ke sekolah karena kita ada family day. Kasih tahu ya orang tuanya. If the student are able to get the information, then it can be easily for that child to inform the parent, but special need, they don't have that ability. So you need to have that communication book. So the rule of the parent is that to open the book daily to find out whether there is important message from the teacher or not. So that is for something which is not academic. Is it clear? Communication book.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Right. Okay, now let's discuss about technique of teaching, right? For teaching special needs student, look at this. The first one we use cooperative learning. In cooperative learning, the students are expected to be able to learn each other. Other student is telling other student cooperatively. One example of cooperative learning is that buddy program technique. You see the picture? You see the picture, how it is done? Buddy program technique is that tutor teman sebaya biasanya disebut. Ya, tutor teman sebaya kita menyebutnya, kalau saya di sekolah saya namanya buddy program technique. So they are learning with their buddy, with their friends. So you can use this kind of technique where the student, other student from regular class is paired with the student with special need, and they have to learn something. So this is the example of that one. So you can use that one. The next one, peer reading practice. Yeah, peer reading practice. Here, the friend or his peer asks the student with special need to read the text. If needed, he can give example. Then after he has done, his peer can give a questions about that sentence. This activity also gives the chance for the student to practice character values, how to be a leader, how to be empathic, how to be helpful, right? But of course, this one will be possible if the student are not really too severe. Kondisi autistiknya tidak terlalu parah, right? So you can use this one. Okay, the next one. Task group learning, task-based group learning. Okay, so there are many types of task-based learning which can be done with students of special need. The first one, the class work in group to create a statue robot from used cardboard. In this activity, the student with special need join and involved in group by helping the group in making an accessories for the robot. Simple communication expression developed. Here, the student, this can be done for senior high school student or junior high school student or even university student, right? So you ask the student to do certain kind of task, and after that, you ask the student of special need to be involved in that. Why so? Because students of special need are visual learners. The students are better learn by seeing something. So by observing the students, then the student of special need can imitate what other student can do. So this can be done, task-based group learning. So and the students are able to imitate or follow what other students are learning. And after that, you continue with simple expression. You ask the student to have communication. You can ask regular student to ask them simple English, for example. So they are learning each other. So interaction between and among students can be developed. Okay. So that is for the first one. The next one is that this activity is done by matching animals, many kinds of animals, with their habitat. So here they try to match it together. From this activity, communication can develop. These activities also give the chance for the student to practice character value. So here, for example, the other student will tell other students about the type of animal that they have, and they have to be able to read descriptions about those animals, so in order they are able to match between the picture and the description. I would like to ask you a question. What will be the benefit of conducting activity 1 and 2? Anybody can tell me? Yeah, anybody can tell me? What will be the benefit of conducting this activity?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
In my opinion, this kind of group learning will train them to communicate better and how to deliver their opinion, match to their partner or not, and how they can find a way that make the things work together for them. It builds the teamwork skill.
Very good. Yes, good. This is one example. Okay, we continue. The next one is, this is another type. We call it a set point technique. In this one, the teacher can start the interaction by having a set point. So ada template berupa bentuk yang dibuat, and after that the teacher must be able to lead the student to write poem or to develop vocabulary from this one. So this is the picture. You can see the picture. Those are the example. So set poem technique is interaction between the teacher and the student is conducted in English using simple instruction. The first one, student develop their vocabulary, student develop their creativity, use the shape that the student like. Yeah. You can have this one. So you usually, if the student has special need, you start with the shape that the student like. Jadi bentuk gambar yang kalian pakai mulai dengan gambar yang disukai anak. Maka kalau misalnya anaknya suka aeroplane, for example, you start with the picture of aeroplane. Kalau dia tidak suka kucing, jangan menggunakan gambar yang dimulai dengan gambar kucing. So you from this picture you develop your student to have their vocabulary to be increased, to be developed. So this is a very good technique. I find out very good. The next one is that computer-based exercise. Here sometimes students like computer a lot. So you can develop a kind of activities, learning activities by using, you know, there are so many games over there. You can use that kind of game to be able to use by for teaching your student. So what you can do is that you ask the student to do that one, or might be also kind of reward if you are able to finish your work, and then you can use or you can play computer. The computer game provided must be edu game related with what is a game which is really educative. Not any game that might make the student addicted, but the game which is really very beneficial for the student. So we can use that one to be used as a kind of ice-breaking activities might be. So the student can develop, what is it, their vocabulary from or by doing that activity. Or sometimes also the student can use that game as a kind of reward. Right? You can use that. The next one is that you can use to make a kind of linguistic landscape. Right? What is meant by linguistic landscape? Anybody can tell me? Can you tell me? So using linguistic landscape as a way of practicing the use of English. So how does student put the information on a poster, for example? So here is the practice of how the students are able to communicate or to understand the language by putting them in a poster so other people can read or the student can socialize the information. This is a very real, authentic use of English. Anybody can tell me, do you think whether it is really a good way or a very challenging way of teaching English? Tiara, Miss Tiara, can you tell me what is your opinion about this one? What do you think?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Can you give your opinion about using this one as a technique of teaching for your classroom?
In my opinion, to using this technique in the classroom, it's going to be interesting material because it will it's appropriate with the students' environment.
Yeah. Good point. What do you think the challenge that the student might have? What do you think the challenge that the student might have? So making a linguistic landscape like this one is that the student must usually do it in a group, right? To make it finish in a certain time. If they make it alone, it might be a bit difficult. So then you can ask your student to work in group. So if, for example, they have to work in group, what might be the challenge or the difficulties that the teacher might find? Yeah. What do you think? Imagine if you have to teach this one, and then what might be the challenge that you might have? Gail, please, I would like you to give your opinions about it. What do you think will be happening if you teach your student using this type of technique?
I think it is will be easier, ma'am, because the linguistic landscape is we can find it in everywhere, and the students can see it everywhere. For example, in school, the student can see it in the maybe like the advertisement or the rules in the school. So if the teacher asks the student to make this, maybe it will help student make it easier, ma'am, because they see the linguistic landscape in their daily life.
Yes, that is the benefit. But then I would like to ask about if you teach your student and your student must be making the linguistic landscape for the school use, what might be the difficulties that you will find out?
Ma'am, maybe for the special need, student with the special need, we have to take control, just like you said before, teacher as a shadow. So that's the difficulty of teach linguistic landscape.
Yes, good. What will be the other one?
Ma'am, in
Yes.
my opinion, one of the challenge is that the teacher or the school have to prepare the media. For example, here we need some kind of big paper poster here, and then the maybe pencil warna, something like that. And the challenge, one of the challenge must be the teacher must be able to make the student, for especially the special needs student, to focus, because it is kind of project. So to teach them how to teach them for is very hard, especially for autism student, in my opinion.
Yes, the challenge that you might have is that not only those one, but also how, for example, not only the student with special need, but a regular student, for example, how to make it really organized in a linguistic landscape. The size of the what is it? The size of the writing there, because sometimes it's so difficult to think about how to make that one to be readable on a certain distance, for example. How to, what kind of color that must be put in order to be easily to be read by people. So those are the things that need to be considered in order the thing which is produced will be really beneficial, not only for the student, but also for those who are able to read it. And the next one is that how to make that information into a simple information. Just the keyword only also needs special skill. So you as teachers need to be able to help your students. So you have to be able to think about what the role of the student in that group. Is it as the leader or as a kind of assistant? Also consider about might be possibility of one student dominating in the group. So you have to think about that one. This is another one, is that how you are able to do a kind of categorizing training technique. How the student are able to categorize something. Ya, so this is example. Misalnya gambar yang di atas itu adalah memasukkan sesuatu bentuk-bentuk kecil ke tempat yang warnanya sama. This is not easy for special needs student. The next one is like this one, the picture that you have, how to classify or categorize things into their category where they belong. Yeah. Picture 2 is a bit more difficult. Picture 1 is a bit okay, right? So you think about this one. This one is understanding vocabulary, and then how the vocabulary are categorized into categories. Okay, the next one, discrimination technique. This is the example. For regular student, this one is way easier, too easy. But for special needs student, this one might be very difficult, right? So you have to think about how you are able to make the student able to differentiate. Mana bentuk lebih kecil, mana lebih gede. Yang ini misalnya gambar yang di atas ini menggunakan jenis Lego. Bagaimana, this is student about miniature animal and their habitat. Oh, dia misalnya dia adalah gajah, habitatnya di mana, dan sebagainya. And if you say, for example, you have adult student, for example, you have senior high school student, for example, you can extend the activity by asking the student to describe about the animal. So you can also describe extending the activity by asking the student to describe more about the animal that they have. So this one can be used not only for young learner, but also for adult student, depends on the level of your students, right? This is another one. We call it morning circle. So this is a very good technique of practicing language use and communication skills. So you can stimulate the interaction in the morning. So that's why we call it morning circle. So the students are able to say what they're feeling based on the picture that they have. The children with special need will be stimulated by the picture to say something about their feeling. So this is a very good one. Okay. This is another example. Peer tutoring. So the students, the older student are telling about the other student, the smaller one about certain things. So you are also developing special kind of character in order to be able to teach them how they are able to be able to say something. Another one is visual, auditory, kinesthetic activities. Look at the picture. That will be very, very good for the student. Why? Because you need to be able to develop the student communication skill by asking them to say about what they have, by providing them visual pictures, for example, auditory media, for example, or kinesthetic media, for example. So you just need to be able to provide them with so much material around them. Okay. Now this is the pyramid of you can use project-based learning. Why? Because this is the pyramid of effective learning. Look at here. What does it mean? If you are doing project-based learning, the students are actively doing something. Active doing something is actually considered by Edgar Dill as the best technique, the best method of learning. Why? Because the students are able to remember the material almost 90%. So if you are asking students to do active learning, active doing, they will be able to learn. And it is believed that 90% of the memory of the material will be memorized by the student. So that's why the government is able to apply a project. That's why project-based learning is highly needed. Until that point, is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes.
So project-based learning is not only a technique of teaching which can be used for regular student, but also special needs student. This is only one example. Okay. Why project-based learning is very important and essential? Because the student can practice character values, practice the learning ownership, practice the authentic use of English, and develop more understanding, respect, inspiration regarding being teachers and their responsibilities. This is an example of how the student, other students have made a kind of games through a project. So what is the picture here is that how the student make special project to help those special needs. Jadi ini contoh bagaimana anak yang lebih gede membuat sebuah aktivitas permainan yang bisa dipakai oleh student of special need. Ini merancang begini memerlukan pemahaman bahasa Inggris yang bagus. Jadi ini lumayan dampaknya. Kenapa anak yang lebih tua bisa memahami bagaimana menjadi orang special need dan mereka bisa saling kerjasama, right? Beberapa contoh, misalnya diberikan guidance how that can be done. So a lot of things that you can do in order to help the student with special needs. The next one is that you can use emotion card. So you can ask the student to say something. Say, for example, you don't know how to express certain words, to express about feeling. You can use expression, what is it, emotion card like this to help you to say about certain expression to the student special. This is very helpful, I find out. Okay, that's it I can say to you. So to conclude is that the success of implementation need a lot of commitment that take into account a lot of different things. The first one is that good understanding about special needs student. The second one, continuous monitoring of student progress and behavior. The third one, close collaboration between teachers, school parents, and other stakeholders. The next one is the reliable system of administration. The last one is the regular meeting and conferences among stakeholders and synchronizing the program. That's it. So to conclude my class today, every child is a different kind of flower that all together make this world a beautiful garden. So what you can say is that just to make how other students accept that one, accept the student, so then they will be well accepted in the school. So thank you. So that is the topic that we have today. A bit long session, so I'm sorry about that one. Now, do you have any question? I give 5-minute question. Is it clear, everyone? Do you still have questions?
Okay, ma'am.
No question?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Okay. In my experience, when I was teaching at course, we have a consultation of parents, and then sometimes that they want to involve themselves for teaching and learning their children in our course, but some parents didn't want to involve themselves, like they just what is that, just give to the responsibility to the teacher, I mean to the tutor, to teach them their students, and they just what is that, demand the teacher to teach them, like their children must be able to speak English well, like native speaker, but they didn't even involve themselves to teaching and learning, because if they just demand, I mean, what is that, count on the teacher in the school, sorry, in the school at the course, my course, I mean, we don't have much time for just only to teach one students, I mean their children, for that. So what's the solution to tell them, like how is it going for their children progress in the future, ma'am? That's it.
Okay, very good one. I would like to ask other students to, what is it, to share opinions. What do you think is the solution? Anybody want to give solution before I give possible activities from my side? Nobody want to say something? Well, based on my experience, what I did is that the first one, it's so important to have a good system in the school. What kind of system that I have in mind? So the school must have how parents can be involved in the school. So you have a very clear parents involvement policy. In what way parents are involved and how parents are recommended to be involved, in what way they are able to involve. So this one need to be clear first. And after that, give orientation to parents about parents involvement program in the school. So this is so important because some school only involve on the financial support only. Ada komite sekolah yang ngasih tugasnya ngasih uang doang. The others, they don't really have that kind of involvement. Or the other school might want to have parents involvement in a more serious way. So you have to tell about the parents that one from the beginning, so they will realize what will be their responsibility. So you just need to do that. If, for example, you already been able to do that, you can ask your parents to involve if it is needed. Because things must be shared, things must be communicated with parents. If you don't communicate with parents, and then if parents do not know, then parents might be angry afterward. Because the policy, the concept about school by parents is different. So you have to be able to socialize what is the policy of the school where you work about parent involvement. And after you socialize about it, you can then involve parents based on the need. I think that's what I can say, because I use parent involvement a lot in the school. My school have all of parent involvement program is applied there. So then every single event happening at school is shared to parents, so then parents will not be complaining. We give the reasons why and what was done by the school, and then after that, direct communication, parent will be always happy. Why? Because they are shared with any single information dealing to the kids, especially important event. With this one, then parent will not be asking questions, will not be complaining, because they have been informed by the school. So that's why it's so important to have communication book. So then parent can just, school can just write information there, and after that they know about what kind of activities done at school or what is happening with the child or children. With that kind of policy, I believe that parents will not be that complaining, and the school will be able to handle the best they can. If they have problem, they share the problem with the parents, because you will need to have parents at home to continue what you give at school, right? Okay, I hope this answers your question. Is it answering your question, Rika?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's clear.
Yeah, okay. Is there any other questions still in your mind?
Me, ma'am.
Yes, please.
Okay. On your previous presentation, that was a technique of teaching for students' need, and I found it interesting. I'm sorry, I forgot the names of the techniques. That is a drawing from the older on the road with their crayon. Yeah. And then that is also applicable for the students with special needs. So I just want to know, what was your strategy to do something like that? Because I am really curious, and I think I want to apply it in my classroom too. Thank you.
Yeah, actually that one is having a very, what is intention? The first one, we would like the student learning autonomy can be empowered. So what was done is that the homeroom teacher, the English teacher, introduce what kind of game, or discuss with the student what kind of game that can be shared with the student of special need, because students of special need are good in imitating others. So you have a kind of browsing ideas first and discussing about the activity that you can share with the student of special need. After you have a discussion, and then you decide. So it's not the teacher who decide, the class decide. The teacher and the student decide what is the game that can be given to the classroom, including student of special need. After you agree about it, and then you discuss again with your student about job division. Who are doing what, right? And then you divide your student. Who are drawing, who are making what kind of word that I use as a kind of instruction, what kind of instruction that I use, in order the student of special need also understand about it and how they are able to do it, who are supervising, who are become the tutor for the other students. So you are doing that, and after that you are practicing it. You can use pen for that one. Jadi bisa menggunakan cat sehingga dipakai bertahun-tahun. So that's why it is called a legacy project. So the project can be given to the next generation as a kind of games that can use not only for students special need, but also regular student. We found it very good. Students love it so much. Their character improve, develop, and also they are able to be very well accepted toward the student of special need. So then they are not bullied, they are not refused, they are not rejected in the school. They are really very sweet students, right? Sometimes the students special need are feeling very tired and the older students are taking care of them. So we as teachers just observe from the distance and see and what is going on. And that is so nice. The first time, you know what? I'm in tears because I know how successful it was, right? So you can just try. The difficulty will be when you have browsing ideas. If you find out that your student is difficult to get the ideas, so you teacher must be able to lead what kind of game you stimulate your student, right? So important to inform them, not the teacher's decision, but then the class decision. That is so important. So then it will be a kind of sense of belonging, or this is the game is belong to us, right? It's not because the teacher instructed the student to do it. That is so important to have decision making made by all stakeholders in that classroom, the teacher and the student, not only the teacher. Right? Is it answering your question?
Yes, Ibu. Thank you.
Okay. Other question might be?
May I, ma'am?
Yes, please.
First of all, thank you so much for the interesting material. But for me, maybe this is not the real question. It's I just want to share my friend's experience as a teacher for the students' special need. She is a teacher that really fresh graduate like me, but she said that teaching student for special needs, or she always tell me for anak ABK, it's not really easy. It's really
not easy. No, it's
really
not
difficult. Almost for the first step, she teach for the student special needs. She almost always go to the toilet and crying.
Yeah, that is true, right? Yes.
It's not easy because difficult, but it's really menyentuh hatinya when the students can remember her name.
Yes. Exactly.
And something that she told me that she has a big pressure when she have to report the progress of the students to the parents, because actually she said that actually guru ABK just handle one student, but she handle 5 students, so it will a big pressure for her. Maybe you have a kind of words that I can give for her, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. That is the reality that is always happen in a school. I totally understand about it because I myself also have the experience of dealing with this one. I handle student with special needs since 2006, long time ago, because at that time I even do not really understand what is meant by ABK. I even do not really understand that those kind of students exist, because I belong to the old curriculum where we don't know at all about those kind of phenomena. But then because of directed by love, if you have love in your heart, you then are just able to create certain activity following the motherhood of your character, right? So you develop something. That is the start of how I started my program on special needs students. So number one is so important. The teachers must have characteristic of like children. If you don't have that character, and then it's really difficult for you to really able to handle. You will be disappointed all the time because handling student of special need is not that easy. So what you can do, number one, is that understand who are your students, how severe they are, seberapa keras special need-nya, apakah bisa mandiri atau tidak. Jikalau tidak bisa mandiri, harus diusulkan bahwa tidak bisa menghandle 1 orang untuk 5 anak. Ya, jadi siapa yang bisa digabungkan ke dalam grup itu? Kalau misalnya ada anak yang sangat-sangat parah kondisinya, itu akan banyak menyita perhatian. Anak yang lain juga tidak akan mendapatkan perhatian gurunya. So you need to have a kind of what they said recommendation for the school master, principal, right? And the next one is that you just need to understand what are needed by your student. Kalau misalnya ada pada kategori di mana anak itu tidak bisa memahami, you need to create a kind of technical strategy. Let me give you one example. Misalnya anak special need karena parahnya parahnya kondisi anak, even they don't understand instruksi yang diberikan oleh guru. Why? Because the student sometimes cannot understand the verbal instruction. So what you can give is that you make a kind of instruction, but visual instruction. Jadi visual instruction itu dengan menggunakan tanda gambar-gambar diisi dengan huruf. Pernah melihat kartu anggota? Misalnya kalau kalian in a conference gitu, ya kan ada kalungnya dengan ada name tag-nya. Nah, saya buatkan guru saya, kartu itu tuh berisi sekian instruksi yang harus dilakukan oleh yang akan digunakan guru di dalam 1 hari. Misalnya ada 10 instruksi. Misalnya, diam, kerjakan ini, minum dulu, istirahat, dan sebagainya. Itu dibuat instruksinya dengan gambar. If then, for example, if the teacher express something verbally, they don't understand, the teacher just need to show that card. And it is very effective. Very effective. Right? So, I hope I have the picture, which not in this slide. Okay? I make it like that because I was inspired by the media used by a special school in Australia. I visited the school in Australia a long time ago. So I find out the teacher in there make all instruction in English with the picture. So they have collection of instruction and they bring it with them everywhere they go. Jadi semua instruksi dengan gambar itu ketika mengajar dibawa oleh guru sehingga dikalungkan atau dibuat seperti tas. Jadi jikalau misalnya anaknya tidak paham tinggal ditunjukkan itu. Itu sangat efektif. Iya, karena apa? Karena anak special need itu kadang-kadang sulit mengerti instruksi secara verbal, tetapi akan lebih mudah memahami jikalau dibuat gambarnya. So instruction must be through pictures. Why? Because most of them are visual learner. So if you make it that way, if the teacher says something is not well understood, you show the picture. Yeah, I hope that answer your question, Miss Tiara.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Ya, itu yang itu bukan ciptaan saya, tetapi itu saya dapatkan ketika saya mengunjungi sekolah special need di Australia. And then I use it for my school. Ternyata dengan dipakai seperti itu bagus. Guru saya mengatakan sangat efektif, Ibu. Kalau dulu dia ngomong sampai 3 kali tidak didengar gitu. Jadi frustasi kan? Nah, itu ditunjukkan dengan kartu itu ditunjukkan gitu. And then bahkan kalau misalnya istirahat harus makan gitu, jadwal ditempel di ininya, di mejanya. Instruksi penting itu ditempel di mejanya sehingga nanti guru tinggal menunjukkan saja. If example they find it difficult. So that one way also. So you can ask your student about simple English, instruksi dalam bahasa Inggris gitu, bisa. Ya. Tiara? Is it answering your question?
Yes, really answering my question. Thank you, ma'am.
Ya, sama-sama. Ada student? Do you think that you learned something new today?
Very, very much, ma'am.
Yeah, I hope that you are inspired. What I teach here is not, is not in a certain book yet. Jadi itu kenapa saya membuat buku. Tapi saat ini buku saya yang tercetak habis. Jadi untuk cetakan pertama habis laris manis, saya membuat buku judulnya Teaching English di Kelas Inklusif. So apa yang saya jelaskan tadi semua ada di buku saya. But it's not that available yet. Saya belum sempat mencetak lagi untuk yang cetakan kedua. So that is what I said is actually what I experienced because I know it's not really available in certain books. Untuk Indonesian context juga sulit gitu ya. So that's why I make it my own based on the experience that I have. I hope this one will be helping you a lot. So is there any other information before I end the class? Can we end the class this session, Darren? Jadi Yogi, ini pengganti 2 sesi. Nanti untuk 2 sesi lagi akan diganti dengan tugas ya, Pak Yogi. Saya akan kasih kalian kerjakan dalam 2 minggu. Artinya untuk 3 minggu lagi baru disubmit. Nanti saya kasih. Pak Yogi bisa nggak besok atau setelah besok minta kepada saya apa tugasnya?
Bisa, bisa. Besok ya chat.
Yeah, I'm a bit busy today, so then I can give you, and that assignment can be submitted in 3 weeks. That will be as a kind of final score from me, so you will be able to have a score from me, right? Okay, everyone. Nanti pakai buku yang saya kasih, strategi pembelajaran bahasa sebagai buku tambahan to make you understand about the strategy of teaching, right? Based on the division made by Miss Rita. Saya dikasih tugas tentang teaching English, sedangkan beliaunya yang mengajar psycholinguistiknya. So that our division. Di apa yang saya tulis di buku strategi pembelajaran bahasa itu sudah banyak ada di buku-buku that is a kind of my book as a kind of summarizing from many sources. Sedangkan teaching special need itu tidak ada di buku itu, ada di buku saya yang lain. But basically because you have the recording already, so you can have the information from the recording. Yeah. Okay, I hope that's it for today. Everyone, thank you so much for being able to attend my class. Thank you for having me in your classroom. I hope this helped you to be able to develop your inspiration and how you are able to best teach your student in your classroom in the future. Okay, before and let me give you the last part. Okay, I hope that I can. Okay, this is I gave you 1 minute possible topic for your research. You can do this one. Okay. Oh, this is how you are able to have a topic for master degree or even PhD degree. This is the one that you can have. So if, for example, you want to have innovative topic for your script, for your thesis, you can choose one of them if it is in the area of teaching English for students of special need, right? So this is just to give you ideas you can develop about this one into a research. Right, okay, that's it for today. Everyone, thank you so much. I hope I can see you again next time because this is the last Zoom meeting that we are going to have because the rest two more sessions will be about independent learning that I gave you through a kind of a very, important task-based learning. You will be asked to do certain activity that will be submitted at the end of my schedule. Right? Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I will in contact with Yogi as the coordinator of your class, and the assignment will be shared to him, and Yogi will be responsible to share the information to you all. Okay, goodbye, everyone. See you again next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.